Hello and welcome to Inside Edition, where we discuss national, regional and international issues in depth. Since 2011, Bahraini Female Entrepreneur Honor Seal Initiative, which was launched by Her Royal Highness Princess Sabika bint Ibrahim Al Khalifa, wife of His Majesty the King and chairperson of the Supreme Council for Women, has been supporting and motivating outstanding Bahraini females in entrepreneurship and honor their contribution to business environment. In addition, honoring Seal aims to promote the spirit of innovation and creativity, as well as enhancing women's economic empowerment so as to achieve the goals and aspirations of National Women's Empowerment Program. To know more about Bahraini Female Entrepreneur Honor Seal Initiative, we are pleased to be joined by member of the Initiatives Committee, Ms. Tala Fakhro. Welcome back. Joining me here in the studio is member of Bahraini Female Entrepreneur Honor Seal Initiative, Ms. Tala Fakhro. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Ms. Fakhro, first off, thanks for making some time for us to talk about this. This is a very important initiative. Can you give us an idea about the Bahraini Female Entrepreneur Honor Seal Initiative, as well as what were the goals set for it? What is the significance of it?
Sure. The Supreme Council for Women, which, as you know, is chaired by Her Royal Highness Princess Sabika bint Ibrahim Al Khalifa, launched the award in 2011, and it was meant as an encouraging initiative to get young Bahraini women to showcase their contributions in entrepreneurship, to honor their work, and to create a supportive economic environment for them. And as an award highlighting this, it's really important because it not only honors the individual entrepreneurs that get the award, but it also spreads the culture of entrepreneurship with women in Bahrain and in the GCC in general. And we want to really showcase that and make sure that entrepreneurship is a viable career path for young women going forward.
Right. When we talk about this initiative, there have been previous editions of it.
That's right.
In terms of requirements for participating and what the winners do you do like a follow-up of the winners? But first tell us about what are the requirements to participate in this initiative.
So you can apply online. There's a portal and you can submit your application. You will need to demonstrate, obviously you need to be a young Bahraini female, but you need to demonstrate a capacity for development of the project. You need to demonstrate that your project is actually viable and that you're managing all the risks that go along with that, because obviously entrepreneurship is a risky thing.
Yes.
You need to, ideally, you would present the fact that you've provided jobs for others. You would present some kind of community contribution, whether that's through CSR within your organization or doing individual initiatives around it. And you would try, and we really emphasize this in this edition, to look at things that had the potential to be exports, because we want to drive that kind of area of expertise.
Definitely. I mean, the pandemic actually opened, it was of course not a blessing, but a blessing in disguise somehow, because when you look at all of the businesses that opened and the industrial area of Bahrain, there have been mask companies. We've always had sanitation companies, but now they've grown. Medication, medical equipment, a lot of these industries did come up in Bahrain during this last period. Does this initiative, when you prepare the candidates that come into this initiative, do you give them some kind of training or some kind of direction, show them what way is the best way to go right now, depending on the market and what's available and not?
Yes, and working with our partners, Tamkeen and others, we do try to give them the relevant mentoring, coaching. There are programs to support them. Tamkeen has offered over the years multiple ways that you can get funding for certain expenditures and otherwise. But I think the number one thing that we look for is that spark of creativity within the female entrepreneur that says, I see a need, I want to fill it. And I think you were absolutely correct. COVID-19 was a curse, but it was also a blessing for a lot of these, because it really showed us that there is a different way to work, and there's a different way to reach a market, and we're not just stuck on the local market. COVID-19 showed us actually you can service the world from Bahrain.
Absolutely. One of the things that the pandemic brought with it is forced us 15 years ahead into the digital transformation arena. When we look at fintech, digital banking, digitalization of e-services for the government and for the private sector, it really did expedite these kind of things. What is your take on this digital transformation?
I think that, as you mentioned, the seeds were sown much earlier, but it wasn't a matter of urgency. It wasn't as big of a priority.
Yeah.
We would not have gotten through this pandemic had it not been for the infrastructure that had already been laid down. But it really accelerated. And I can tell you that if you look at a small thing, electronic payments, they increased in 2020 almost 1,500%. From the previous year, and they had been used before, but it was nothing like what it became the norm. And that's really important, because once we have that, then we can really push the digitization barriers forward. And digitization is a good in and of itself, because it means that you are more efficient. It means you can automate a lot of tasks that otherwise would have taken a long time. And the government can prioritize where it spends its money. Instead of spending it on paperwork and processing and bureaucracy, it can put it to where it really needs it.
Absolutely. What makes this year's edition of the initiative special or different?
Well, obviously, we've been talking about it. It's the elephant in the room, COVID-19 and the impact that it had and how you coped with it. There is no better test of somebody's resilience than pivoting to do something new when the circumstances change. So we really looked at that. Also, for the first time, we're really looking at virtual businesses rather than bricks and mortar businesses in the past. So.
When we look at, as you said, web businesses and everything, it actually goes a bit farther now with the metaverse field entering the arena. Some of our neighboring countries actually announced in the last couple of days metaverse businesses that will come out, hospitals that are going to be web-based, that kind of stuff. Do you see Bahrain going towards that kind of initiative?
Absolutely. I think Bahrain is in a very good place to do that. First of all, Bahrain is small, but small is beautiful. It allows, small means that you can reach the people that you need to reach in order to get decisions to be made. And it makes it a great test hub. If you can work it in Bahrain, then you can work it anywhere in the GCC. The culture is the same, the language is the same, but here you have a very controlled environment. And you have a government that has been very, digital forward with cloud-first policies, with the advent of various large companies coming to Bahrain. They've all recognized that this is the place where they need to set up if they want to be digital.
Definitely. One of the things that Bahrain also has is talented young cadres. The young people of Bahrain are trained in so many different fields, and they've gotten their training from outside of the kingdom and inside, and all bring it back to Bahrain, making us very strong when it comes to local cadres that have the training. Now, what can you tell us about the new and the innovative economic fields that have recently emerged? You mentioned exporting products, but what are the provided opportunities for women specifically in this regard?
Well, I'll answer that by telling you a story. Okay. We recently announced last year, EDB, in collaboration with Temkeen, a large initiative by Citibank. And they are setting up a tech training hub here where they will support their global digital platform from Bahrain. And you asked me why they set up here. They came here because when they looked at the graduates in STEM, in science, technology, engineering, they found that over 50% of them were women. And so that is very, very, very unusual. And they were just blown away by the level of diversity in the workforce. And they've come here and they've already hired 50 people, over 50 people in Bahrain, a lot of whom are women. So I think that definitely there's, the fact that Bahrain has always, from the inception, had kind of gender parity within all the different industries. I mean, we have women who have been in elected office, we have women who are doctors, we have women who are ministers, we have women who are in construction. There is no field in Bahrain of economic activity where there are not women.
Legislative Shura Council everywhere.
You name it. I don't think there's a single field that has excluded women. And so there's always been this kind of bedrock of gender parity, which is very important for companies around the world, because this is not the case in other countries. I mean, look at the developed countries like the US. There are efforts all over the place to try and get women to get into these specialties, whereas here they're already studying that from the beginning. And we want to encourage that. We want to encourage it more. So I think firstly is the fact that we have the infrastructure, we have the basic skills, because women do study engineering, they do study math, they do study technology. So there's that. The other thing is that the virtual world or the digital world really allows a lot more flexibility than traditional paid work.
Right.
And we all, as we all know, women have many, many, many commitments to their family, to their parents, to their children, to their husbands. And so it is very attractive for women to be able to create your own hours, to do only the work that you wish to do. And the digital economy really enables that.
Right.
Thirdly, it allows them access to a bigger labor market because, as I mentioned, Citibank people, they're not servicing Bahrain Citibank, they're servicing Citibank globally. Right. So the trades are coming in from Moscow and Lisbon and wherever else, and they're being sorted out here. Yeah. And so that allows you to a different job market, it allows you to a different pay scale, and that is very attractive for women also.
Definitely. When we talk about these kind of opportunities for women that are given in Bahrain, it's really important to point out for our viewers outside of Bahrain that Bahraini women are already aware of the opportunities that they have, and that's why they strive for more. But it's really the outside world that doesn't know that Bahrain gives these opportunities to women, and they've always been there. It's not something that really came up new. And one of the main players in this direction is Her Royal Highness Princess Sabika bint Ibrahim, who not only initiated the SCW, but she's always had that initiative to push women towards greatness locally and then regionally and internationally. What can you tell us about the importance of that kind of awareness on a global level?
I think Her Royal Highness Princess Sabika bint Ibrahim has really played a key role because her position in the Bahraini ecosystem is so pivotal and so important that having her focus on this issue really gives it global prominence. I've seen my colleagues at the Supreme Council of Women have advocated for Bahrain at the UN, at the World Bank, in various different NGOs and around the world, and it just her ability to chair that council really gives it the prominence that it deserves and that it needs. Also, I think there's a little bit of lack of information in the world about, the role of Arab women. We tend to have, or at least in the West, there is a certain kind of stereotype, which is completely untrue. And it just having women advocate for themselves, women who are educated, women who are working, to see that, it changes that perception. It creates a whole new understanding of what it means to be an Arab woman.
Right. And this digital transformation with social media being a platform, everything really showcases Arab women in a different light now. Digital economy, we've talked about a little bit, but its various aspects are reshaping innovation in trade and in business. What can you tell us about women's current and future contributions in this field specifically?
So I think that the first thing that you have to understand is that the digital economy is not a threat. People here, or in general, they fear change, and that's normal, that's human. But at the end of the day, it's a tool. You can use it. It can be for good or it can be for bad. And in the digital economy, if used correctly, will really free up a lot of resources to do a lot of the work that cannot be done by robots. People are very bad robots, but no robot can be a person. No robot can be creative. And so I think that the digital economy and the changes that we're making, whether it be in artificial intelligence, whether it be in blockchain, whether it be in any other kind of technology, it really allows you the tools to experiment and to be free and to think about new and interesting things and developments. Right. And I'll give you one example in the healthcare, because it's close to all our minds given the pandemic. There's a lot of talk now about radiology and whether or not artificial intelligence engine would be better able to detect breast cancer in mammograms than a human radiologist. And people are worried that this means that radiologists are going to be out of work, but it's not true, because the machine will click on 50 x-rays that look suspicious, but only a human can come in and say, okay, I think in this case, given this person's medical history, this person's lifestyle, this is what I would recommend for her. And that person can spend more time with the patient, understand them better, take their concerns on board, understand their mental health, and look at them holistically. And that's a huge achievement. because it was able to get the tedious business out of the way quickly by machine and then really focus on the human angle. And that's what I want to see technology doing. And I think we're in a good place in Bahrain to help us do that.
Absolutely, I see where you come from, because especially in the health care sector, we try to give the patient the optimum kind of care. And as a nurse myself, having something like a medication cabinet that weighs the pill and that tells me what pill does shorten my time that I can actually use to treat the patient or help a patient. But at the same time, it does not mean that I'm not in this equation, because I recheck these medications, I recheck if they're the correct ones, because some pills look alike and even the machine can't sort that out. So the human factor is always important, but shortening that time through technology and making the task easier on humans and having that extra time does give a push. But technology is expensive, and having a technology that's expensive sort of always puts the question mark: do we really want to go that way right now, or do we want to wait? How do we tackle that problem?
I would say to you that technology is expensive, yes, but it saves money in the long run.
Yeah.
So you're not spending, thousands of man hours checking and rechecking something.
Right.
You know it's correct because the computer said it was, and so there's that. And it's an investment like anything else. You pay up front, but you get the dividends in time. And I don't think we really fully understand so much how much time is money.
Yeah.
We have only a limited amount of hours on this earth. And would you want to be checking accounting entries, or would you rather spend it with your family or with your friends? So this is one. I think the other thing to think about is it's fast becoming to the point where it's not a luxury anymore. It is a necessity. The world will not run without technology. You can no longer, imagine a world without the internet. This is going to be the case going forward for everything. You will no longer be able to understand your parents having to go to the bank and park the car and get down and all to deposit money from a bank when you could just pay with your phone.
Yeah.
You tap and you go.
Yeah,
think how much better for the environment, how much better for you, how much time you saved just with that one innovation.
Yeah. Extra ideas for people that want to join the initiative.
Absolutely.
All right. How do you value the provided support by the SCW? You talked a little bit about it, but the Bahraini government as well does provide that support to all entrepreneurs, not just women entrepreneurs. But how do you value that?
I think the first and foremost in my mind, and this is, my personal take on this, is as we mentioned, Bahraini women have always been in every sector of the economy, but I think there's a little bit of cultural resistance to entrepreneurship, and so just having the focus on that, the showcase of that, is really valuable because it presents it as a viable alternative. If you can see it, then you can be it, as they say.
Yeah.
So I think that's one, and I think showcasing that women have taken this risk, women have taken this step and have put their savings on the line, have borrowed from their friends and family, and have done what they need to do. It says, well, maybe I can do that. It gives women who haven't yet taken the plunge, the kind of moral certainty or moral leverage that, there is support out there. I'm not alone. Somebody is with me. They're holding my hand every step of the way. There are programs to help me. And I think that we tend to underestimate a little bit, how much push somebody needs to take that first step. The first step is always the hardest.
Right.
So I think that is the single biggest value. Obviously, the Bahraini government supports both men and women equally in terms of finance, but I think the SCW just gives that kind of moral push.
Right. Bahraini Female Entrepreneurs Honor Seal initiative actually collaborates with a lot of institutions in order to achieve the goals that they have set for themselves. How do you value the importance and outcomes of these kind of cooperations, and why are they important in the long run as well?
Well, I think it's very important that the Bahraini government acts as one.
Yeah.
And we always say Team Bahrain,
yes.
And Team Bahrain it's more than just a slogan, it's actually an idea. Mm-hmm. And the idea is that we are all aligned. And so the fact that SCW lobbies various government entities to do things, it puts the women question on the agenda for all of these entities.
Right.
It raises it to front of mind. But B, it just ensures alignment, ensures that nobody is falling through the cracks. And it's this kind of thinking and this kind of focus on this particular vertical, this segment, that allows issues to come up that otherwise wouldn't have come up.
Right.
And one very important issue that SCW has rightly been lauded for has been the family law.
Yes.
You know, and it's one of those things that it affects every woman who decides to get married or not. It affects their daily lives, it affects their income, their standard of living. And it was only really once the Supreme Council focused on this that it came to a resolution. Obviously, they had to work with the Ministry of Justice and the LLOC and everyone else, but it was their work that kind of pushed it to the forefront, and that's the value of their alignment and their participation.
Absolutely. When we come to such an initiative such as the Female Entrepreneur Honor Seal, there are standards. There are certain standards that are set, and they are set there for a reason. And the collaborations with, whether it is local institutions or regional or international ones, these kind of collaborations do set the standards, because you see what another country does or another institution does, and you want to do it better or at least just as good. So what can you tell us about the standards set for the seal?
So, as I mentioned, there are certain criteria that are outlined there, but above and beyond that, I think what we try to do is we try to form a committee that would represent different points of view, so that we would have everyone at the table presenting their kind of feedback. And the Supreme Council does a lot of benchmarking of similar awards around the world to see, you know, what level are we talking about? Are we talking about, you know, an industry that is, or a company that is just formed? Or are we talking about somebody who's been in operation for a while? Are we talking about, you know, they sell, you know, 1,000 dinars worth of revenue, or are we talking about a significant amount?
Is it a unique idea, or is it something that's been done before?
Exactly. And so I think that the standards are changing a little bit in terms of the criteria and the filtration. And I think that having different people at the table really helps to kind of formulate that and bring out the most important standards of that.
Absolutely. In a recent published statement, you have mentioned that Bahrain was ranked first in the Gulf and second in the Arab world in the field of economic participation and opportunities in the annual report of the World Economic Forum, Davos, on measuring the gender gap in 156 countries in the world. What can you tell us about the significance of that and the exerted efforts behind reaching that number?
So to answer your question, I'll tell you how this is calculated. So they survey 192 countries around the world, and they send out to government and to private institutions in those countries the same survey, and they collect all the answers. And they measure female labor force participation, so how many women are in the labor force, wage equality for similar work, same job, same pay. They look at the female estimated income, average income. They look at, are there female legislators, are there senior officials, are people on boards, you know, things like that. And they look at female technical and professional workers. And I'm very proud to say that Bahrain was, as you mentioned, #1 in the Gulf for that. It shouldn't be a surprise to anyone who's been in Bahrain for a while. But we have scored very, very, very highly on those levels. And it's particularly interesting to me that one of the main criteria is same job, same pay. Yes. Because this is so obvious to us, and we wouldn't imagine anything different. Exactly. But that's not the case everywhere else in the world. Of course. And so that's something that gives me a lot of pride as a Bahraini woman.
Absolutely. And Bahrain would be outrageous if it was any other way, because this is the norm. When we talk about these kind of rankings, this kind of recognition from the outside world, Bahrain has always been a business hub. The whole island, the whole country is a business hub. The people are trained, even children in schools, they take a whole subject in business where they learn how to calculate, how to manage household money, their allowances, that kind of stuff. On the other hand, how to be innovative, how to be different. Bahrain has a lot of initiatives from different, let's say, clubs and different private sector and governmental sectors where they push them. I mean, one of the very simple ones that I can mention is the Youth and Sports Ministry, who provides a lot of initiatives and provides a lot of opportunities for the youth to really flourish. Polytechnic always provides their yearly hackathon where the students can go into the digital market. How important are these to make the young people thrive and learn these new capabilities? And this recognition, how important is it?
This is absolutely critical. It's absolutely critical. I mean, without these kinds of initiatives, without this kind of groundswell of grassroots support, without this kind of indoctrination in school level, you wouldn't have creative thinkers. You wouldn't have entrepreneurs. You know, everyone would just be a doctor or whatever their dad is, because this is, you know, the default, the thing that your parents encourage you because they know it. And, you know, better the known than the unknown, as they say. When you're talking about an area which is unknown, it's very important that you get some kind of your feet wet early in life so that you understand what it is. And at the end of the day, you know, this is a young person's game. You know, you're not going to risk everything if you have a family and 5 kids to start your own business, or very few people will. But if you're, you know, if you're just out of school and you think, well, you know, let me try it. What have I got to lose? And so that's a thing. But in order for people to get comfortable and to get familiarize themselves with what's required, you have to do it. And at the end of the day, failure is just a way to teach you. It's just another lesson. It's nothing to be ashamed of. You must try, and you must fail, and you must try again. And that is real strength and success.
Yes, and looking at it from that point of view is really the reason why we do and take these kind of risks. Now, another point, this international recognition for female entrepreneurs, for our youth here in Bahrain is also important, because it gives a very clear message that really the world is the limit. There is no limitation for you in your area, in whatever career path you've chosen. You can do whatever you want. How important is the international recognition of Bahrain and its female entrepreneurs?
Oh, it's so important, because it gives you, you know, the opportunity. And at the end of the day, you don't want to be limited by your geographical borders. We are not any more limited for that. You can easily sit in Bahrain, as I did yesterday, and have a Zoom call with somebody in Hong Kong in the morning and somebody on the west coast of California at night. You can have those kinds of trade relationships. You can have those kinds of, you know, informational exchanges. We have Temkeen has launched several initiatives with global entrepreneur networks. SCW has facilitated, you know, all kinds of different conferences. So there is really no barrier to you getting any information that you want. You can have a mentor that's sitting in Switzerland or in wherever, Paraguay if you want. And you must do a little bit of homework on yourself and to find out what is out there for you. But having done that, the sky's the limit.
Of course. Well, what is the importance of sharing and spreading awareness about Bahraini women's stories, successes, and their entrepreneurship in the entrepreneurship field?
Well, I think obviously one is the cultural awareness, because you know, I think women are a little bit more risk averse sometimes, and they tend to take the safe path. So I think just having that kind of understanding that, oh, you know, Nada Al-Alawi, one of our graduates, or Amin Al-Abbasi, who's another recipient of the Honor Seal, they did it. If Amina can showcase her stuff at Harrods, why can't I? You know, if Nada can sell on the web, why can't I? So there's that element of it. But I think also you're doing this for your country, because in Bahrain, 95% of all the CRs that are issued for small and medium businesses, for startups, for entrepreneurs. And it is vital. And it is in accordance with Vision 2030 and the government's National Action Plan that we promote things in the private sector. We promote the ability of the private sector to employ people, and to grow and to export. Because without that, then we cannot grow as an economy. You know, we are limited by how much the government can continue to spend, and we need that kind of engine to drive growth. And aside from anything else, the private sector is where innovation and creativity can come. And if we are to grow and develop and continue to give our average citizen a decent lifestyle, then that part of the economy must grow.
And that's why the EDB has always also promoted that kind of cooperation between the public and the private sector to bridge that gap that is there. How important is the awareness that needs to be spread about the work field in the private sector and its collaboration with the governmental sector?
So I think that, you know, in every aspect of life, you know, you are touched by the government, but it should not be the case necessarily that the government is the only touch point for you. You should be able to decide for yourself, do I want to go to a private hospital or do I want to go to a public hospital?
Yes.
Do I want to go to a private school or do I want to send my kids to a public school?
Absolutely.
You should be able to give, and this gives you liberty and freedom to choose. And having that collaboration, taking the best of the private sector, the creativity, the ingenuity, the agility, and the government, the kind of standards and the regulatory framework and the kind of overall macro view, and combining them together really gives the citizen the best of both worlds. And it's very important that this continues to be the case and grows.
Well, the Female Entrepreneur Honors Seal initiative is not the only initiative that's on the table for female entrepreneurs or even female innovators. But the seal sort of sealed the deal for the entrepreneurs to have the opportunity to look forward to achieving something more or having that extra accreditation. But at the same time, entrepreneurs are also going globally. They're going internationally and regionally. But the new ones that are coming, they are always seeing those previous honorees of the seal, and they think, okay, I can't really do that. I can do something different. How do you manage them? How do you give them the opportunity to meet maybe with the previous honorees or with basically the mentors that taught them?
So, well, as I mentioned, part of the committee is actually previous honorees.
Right.
So Amina is on this edition as an honoree, for example. And it's we have networking events, we have mentoring, facilitating workshops and things like that. We have press conferences and other kind of ways that they can learn and they can talk to each other. There are multiple other ways that they can get in touch through the Supreme Council with the previous honorees and learn, what was your experience? How do I want to export to Saudi? I'm not sure what I need to do. How do I get through the paperwork? If you want to have these kinds of discussions, there are multiple facilities and ways that you can do that.
Has the pandemic changed the playing field, so to say, for these new honorees?
I think it's opened up a lot of doors. I really think it has. I think, for let's get down to basics. At the end of the day, the entrepreneur wants to know, if I'm selling you something, how do I get paid? And now it's easy to do that.
Of course.
And, much easier than it was. It's easy to get someone to come and pick up your item and deliver it to you. It's much easier than it ever was. So a lot of stuff that had been a stumbling block or an issue previously has been resolved. And as we said, the market is now opened up. And I'm not just talking about goods, I'm also talking about services. If you want to audit somebody's accounts, you can do that sitting in Bahrain. If you are a licensed auditor. If you want to help somebody translate something. Supreme Council launched a platform called Terjament in collaboration with Temkeen a few years ago, and that's, you can sign up and you can put samples of your work and somebody can hire you, and that person can be anywhere in the world. And that's a service that is being exported, and that's important for Bahrain. And you can do it whenever you want. You can do it when the kids go to bed, or you can do it in the morning, wherever you prefer to work. And so I think the pandemic has opened a lot of doors and created a lot of opportunity.
Each beginning of December we have Bahraini Women's Day, and Bahraini Women's Day is not only for the women that are honored each year differently, but it's also sort of a promotion for the women coming up next year, or the youth, the females that are in schools or in universities. And we see a lot of, specifically universities, do a lot of initiatives to empower their students, their female students specifically. Bahrain is home to some of the top universities in the region, one of them, of course, being the University of Bahrain. How important is that educational institutions, higher educational institutions such as that, really promote the female students to go on that path of entrepreneurship or business or whatever they might think of going into?
Oh, it's crucial. I mean, at the end of the day, when you're young, when you're under 10, the biggest influence in your life is, of course, your parents. But as you grow older, more and more your teachers and your professors start to play a pivotal role. And you hear it again and again. People say, oh, I I really went into this line of business because my professor in school or in college said, you would be great for this, or my career counselor or this. So I think it's crucial. It does give young people some guidance. And I think young people today suffer from a buffet of choices, right? They have so many different things that they can do, and sometimes it's overwhelming. And I think the university does play a role in saying, I know you, I've evaluated you, you've been in my class, and I really think you would be good for this.
And here, our university provides you these services or these kind of things to help you on your path. Yeah, definitely. Well, before we end today's show, I'd really like to know, how do you value the local and the international recognition of the SCW's efforts specifically to support Bahraini female entrepreneurs? You talked a little bit about Sheikha Sabika's input into that, but the SCW over the years has grown and grown in the services provided, it has grown in the opportunities provided. How do you value the recognition of it?
I think it's a crucial element to represent Bahrain on the stage, and they do so. We are a very gender equal society. I think the SCW helps to portray that. I think it puts us front forward to say there is every opportunity here for religious tolerance, for gender, for lack of discrimination, for gender, for race, for age. All of these things are promoted and shown by the SCW, and having them at these international events, having them at these collaborations, it demonstrates it's better to show than to tell, right? Yes. And having these strong women out there fighting for our cause internationally, it does wonders for our image as a country.
Absolutely. My last question to you is, the Bahraini Female Entrepreneur Honor Seal Initiative is an ongoing honoring ceremony or honoring deal here in Bahrain. What is the plan for the next one? What are you looking forward to now in the years to come?
So I think we'll continue to tweak it. Obviously, the concept itself will not change, but I think we'll look in each successive edition at the challenges and the risks that had occurred in the last 2 years, and try to. So, for example, with this edition, we really focused on the pandemic and the impact of the pandemic. In 2 years, hopefully, we won't be talking about COVID anymore, or anything else that may come down the line. But we'll look at what has changed and what are the risks and the challenges, and we'll try to keep it current, because we want to make sure that we're getting the very, very best that Bahrain has to offer. And we've seen it grown in popularity. And the last edition in 2019 had its highest ever. We're hoping that this year will be even more applicants.
Social media helped a lot with that, the awareness that you guys have spread on it.
Absolutely. And that's another way that things have changed since the last edition.
Definitely. Thank you so much for being with us today and for explaining this. And we wish you a lot of luck with the upcoming ones. And of course, a lot of luck to all of your candidates that are up for the seal. And thanks again for being with us today.
I'm looking forward to judging, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. And we'd like to thank you, dear viewers, for watching us. And we'll see you next week in another episode of Inside Edition.